Bungie is delaying the final shape until June of 2024, and on top of that, we have mass layoffs at the studio. Countless people have been laid off over the last week, and just today we have a huge announcement of so many different people being laid off from the company. In today's video, we're breaking down exactly why and what happened, or at least as far as we can tell, and giving you all the details of this news story, because that's what we do here for the subscribers of the channel. So the first thing we need to point out is that the gaming industry has been extremely volatile for years, really, but especially lately we've been seeing a ton of layoffs from various different companies. I believe at this point in time, Epic Games has laid off over 900 people within recent months, but they aren't the only ones. Other gaming studios are also doing the same. We're feeling a small collapse in the size of these studios, and now it has trickled down to the studio of the favorite game that we play around here, Destiny 2, with almost the entirety of the community management team being laid off. We have Dirty F and Hippie and Sam Bartley. These are two community managers, or now former community managers, I should say. Along with them, we have Griffin Bennett, who was the now former social media lead for Bungie. So we have a ton of people on the social media side of things getting laid off. And it's very important to distinguish the term differences between being laid off or being fired. Being fired means you did something wrong, and being laid off means that the company did something wrong, which is why a lot of people have been extremely frustrated, blaming this on poor Bungie management. In fact, speaking of which, Bungie's former community manager, DMG04, whom a lot of you probably still remember, had some very heated words to say about Bungie's management on Twitter or X. He posted saying this: "Getting texts from friends impacted by layoffs this morning. It is frustrating, infuriating even, to continue seeing people who strap in to do good work losing their financial security due to poor management. The continued echoes of poor decisions made that feel avoidable." He then goes on to say, in a few of these cases, knowing how much effort these folks put in during incredibly difficult development and sentiment times puts a sour taste in the mouth, followed up by proactive/reactive work, always at the end of the funnel, and having to make do with what they had, and now let go. So even the former community manager is frustrated about how management is being handled within Bungie, but they aren't the only ones throwing punches. We have a previous Bungie game designer saying this: "Wasn't going to say more, but screw it." Imagine laying off basically the entire community management/social team, when that literal same team won like a billion awards over the years and changed the face of the industry as a whole when it comes to communication with players. Actual clown behavior. Now, calling Bungie clowns as a former Bungie game designer is pretty wild, and we rarely see stuff like that happen. Usually people want to stay as professional as possible because the game industry is a very volatile one. Like I've mentioned before, you often end up having work for 6 months or a year or two, only to then get laid off and then have to find work at a different company or find a different position, which is why, although game development does pay really well, it's a scary industry to be in. And you might think to yourself, well, after a few years you would have seniority and then you'd have some safety, but that's definitely not the case, because one individual had been working for Bungie for 10 years and they were laid off just today. This is the former senior support manager saying, "Well, after 10 years at #Bungie, I was laid off today. I'm sad for sure. Hope the best for all the people I won't get to work with anymore. Love you all." Which is a nice message to give when leaving the studio, and the majority of people that were laid off gave a nice message, because again, you don't really want to burn that bridge. We have seen many times before from game developers and just general Bungie employees will from time to time leave the company, go work for another company, but then later come back, which is why it's especially important to not burn bridges, especially in an industry where there are a lot of big players, like there are a lot of big companies with their toes dipped into the gaming community, but it's kind of like everyone knows everyone, and the last thing you want to do is get a bad reputation. So at the time it stands, we have all of these individuals on the screen right here posting that they have been laid off from Bungie: a former recruiting coordinator, former community manager, another former community manager, former franchise editor, a game designer, the social media lead, a former producer now, former senior support manager, and several others that we've covered in a previous video from a week ago. Not to mention, I highly doubt that these are all the individuals. Bungie employees, as you may well know by now, they don't like to go on Twitter too often because their opinions can often be misconstrued and used against them. So I imagine there's a ton of other people that were laid off that just aren't vocally expressing their opinions of this on Twitter or X. As it stands right now, there's no exact number of the amount of people that have been laid off. The number of at least known cases stands at around 20, and it should be said that earlier this morning, Pete Parsons, the CEO of Bungie, emailed everyone, giving everyone an ominous message of how they're going to need to talk about some news today in regards to Bungie. We don't have any screenshots of this exact email, but this has been reported credibly. Now we need to get on to the next issue, which is that the final shape is actually being delayed until June of 2024. Originally, it was set to come out, of course, in February, but now, seemingly due to the layoffs, it's going to be extended until June. This may come as a surprise to some of you out there, but this isn't the first time that this has happened. The Witch Queen was actually the first expansion to be delayed. In part, it was due to the pandemic, but now fast forward a few years and we have another delay, which means that the next Destiny season, Season 23, which launches late in November, will either be an extended season that will reach all the way until June, which I find highly unlikely, which would honestly be terrible. Either that, or there will be another season added before, perhaps a Season 24, but keep in mind that this is actually meant to be the end of the seasonal model in Destiny 2, because with the launch of the final shape, we will have the new episodic model, which means the death of seasons. So will Season 23 be extended like we have seen in the past, or will we get a new season to mediate this issue? We still don't know just yet, but when we get that news story, we'll bring it to you immediately, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel with notifications on. Let me know your thoughts about all this news down in the comments below. Smash the like button and click on the screen here to watch another video from the channel. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Later.